years. It's an extraordinary risk. She's too toxic to touch.
Made them look ridiculous around virtually the whole world, not least because that mockery was so accurate. I mean, I can't imagine they've got an ego big enough.
Is truly one of the most dangerous public figures on the world stage at the moment. She needs to be...
Meghan Markle is trending again, and the reason matters less than the method, because what we're watching is an online storyline being manufactured in real time. Over the last several days, posts across social platforms have been pushing a claim that her name is connected to Dubai in some negative way, as if she suddenly became a problem in certain high-status circles. The way it's being framed is deliberate. It's not presented as a question, it's presented like a verdict, with vague language that sounds official even when nothing about it is confirmed. Here's how this narrative catches people. You'll see glamorous visuals, dramatic captions, and coded phrasing like, "doors quietly closed," or "powerful people weren't happy." But when you look for the foundation, it's mostly smoke. No public incident, no named sources, no reputable reporting. Just a string of posts echoing one another until it starts to feel real, simply because it's everywhere.
As the fairy tale Prince Harry and Meghan Markle embarked on in 2016 become an absolute nightmare for them. Despite marrying in St. George's Chapel in Windsor, it seems like life hasn't been so rosy for the couple. They have gone through endless challenges, the vast majority of which are all self-inflicted.
And once a story gets attached to a place like Dubai, the audience fills in the blanks with their own assumptions about wealth, secrecy, and elite control. That's the hook. Meghan is one of the most argued about public figures on the planet. People don't consume her headlines casually. They treat them like a scoreboard. So the moment a rumor hints at rejection by ultra-elite circles, the internet splits instantly into two teams. One side says it's another coordinated smear built out of old gossip. The other side says it confirms everything they already believed. Either way, the algorithm wins because the comments section turns into a war zone.
Prince Harry and wife Meghan Markle, they've just learned the hardest of lessons, which is, if you start a brawl, do not be surprised if you end up getting punched twice as hard.
And the story keeps climbing. But here's what people should slow down and notice. This current wave isn't being driven by verified events. It's being driven by recycled themes. The same set of insinuations that have circulated for years gets repackaged, given a new setting, and then launched again like it's breaking news. That's why it feels familiar, because it is. It's the same playbook with a new headline. And the smartest part, if you want to call it that, is how it avoids anything concrete. If you never name the supposed decision-makers, never cite an official outlet, and never point to a specific incident, you can keep the claim alive indefinitely. People will argue the theory instead of asking for proof. That creates the perfect loop. The rumor spreads, the reactions create more content, and the lack of confirmation becomes part of the suspense. So the real question isn't whether the internet is talking. The real question is why this particular storyline got pushed right now, and who benefits from the timing. Because when a narrative shows up fully formed, with the same talking points across multiple corners of the web, that's not random. That's distribution. That's strategy. And if you've been watching the Meghan discourse long enough, you already know how this ends.
She's going to downgrade it to a level of ghetto, and that's what it is. This is just...
The loudest version travels the farthest. The truth gets buried under engagement, and the next wave arrives before anyone circles back to correct the last one. So why is this popping off right now? That's the real timing question, because Meghan doesn't trend randomly. Her name moves in waves, and those waves usually show up around something predictable: a new project, a public appearance, a speech, a fresh interview, or even a renewed debate about what she represents after leaving royal duties. When attention rises, the internet almost always reaches backward, digging up old material to reframe it as present-day proof. What makes this cycle different is the setting being used. The story isn't anchored to Hollywood or London this time. It's being anchored to Dubai, and that detail changes how people process it. Dubai carries a built-in aura for online audiences: wealth, closed-door influence, private invitations, high-level social rules that outsiders can't verify. That's why the location is doing so much work. It makes vague claims sound more serious, because people assume there must be something happening behind the curtain. And when imagination starts outrunning verification, pressure builds quickly, not pressure from facts, but pressure from noise, pressure on reputation, pressure on silence, pressure from audiences who demand a response to something that may not even be rooted in a confirmed event. The trap is obvious. If you respond, you validate the topic and push it further. If you stay quiet, critics call the silence proof. Either way, the attention grows. So before anyone even gets to the dramatic claim that someone was pushed out of anywhere, you have to rewind and look at what actually fueled the current spike. This did not start as a new Dubai incident. It started the way these stories usually start, with old internet material getting pulled out of storage, repeated across different accounts, and reintroduced to a new audience as if it's freshly discovered. That's where the chain reaction lives. Suddenly, you see recycled screenshots and old blog references circulating again. You see collages built from random photos stripped of context. You see captions that read like certainty, even when the content underneath is thin. The internet hit replay, and the volume went up because repetition creates the illusion of confirmation. In this phase of the story, the discussion shifts toward Meghan's pre-royal years, her time working as an actress, her time building a lifestyle brand, and the reality that she was around industry networking spaces where wealthy circles overlap with celebrity culture. None of that is shocking. Those worlds mix all the time in places like Los Angeles, Toronto, and international social scenes. But then comes the leap. The point where normal networking gets reframed into a darker, more suggestive narrative, and that leap is what keeps this rumor cycle alive. This is where the internet does what it always does best. It takes anonymous gossip from years ago and repackages it like a settled fact. Nothing new gets introduced, no fresh documentation, no verified reporting, just old whispers brought back with a louder tone and more certainty. And repetition is not neutral. When people see the same claim again and again, especially paired with luxury visuals, yachts, private parties, vague references to billionaires, it starts to feel established in the mind, even if the foundation is still speculation. That is the engine driving this chapter. Not discovery, but recycling. Old rumors get a second life at the exact moment Meghan's name is already trending, and that matters because when something resurfaces, the original context usually gets stripped away. Years ago, a lot of these claims lived in the corners of celebrity gossip, fringe blogs, messy forums, comment sections where exaggeration is the currency. They were not treated like verified information. They were treated like rumor, the kind of thing people repeat because it's dramatic, not because it's proven. Now look at what changed. The same material gets screenshot and reposted on mainstream platforms, where it looks more official simply because it's formatted differently. It gets discussed in serious tones by creators who were never part of the original cycle, so they present it like it's new. The audience is larger, the presentation is cleaner. The perceived credibility rises even though the underlying evidence stays exactly where it was. And that is where Dubai re-enters the storyline. Once old claims are mentally linked to elite travel and wealthy social circles, it becomes easy for online storytellers to start connecting dots that were never officially connected.
Aggressive PR for the Sussexes got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it, or even letting anyone know about it.
The jump is subtle at first. She was around rich people becomes she had ties to powerful circles. That becomes those circles turned against her. Then it becomes she was shut out. Each step feels small enough to swallow, but stacked together, they form a narrative that sounds like a bombshell. But pause and ask the question most people avoid because it ruins the suspense. Was any verified investigation ever produced back then that confirmed these claims? Did any credible outlet publish documented proof? Or are we watching internet rumor get upgraded into something that sounds like a headline simply because it's trending again? That's why the timing feels uncomfortable. Resurfacing isn't random. It often happens when a public figure is already under a microscope, when attention is high, and when audiences are primed to either believe the worst or defend with full force. Meghan's global profile guarantees extreme reactions on both sides, and that reaction energy is what keeps the cycle alive. The story grows not because the facts grew, but because the attention did. The engagement machine loves two things more than almost anything else: royalty and mystery. Put those together and the story practically writes itself, because audiences fill in the blanks with whatever they already believe. But here's the unresolved tension sitting underneath this whole wave. If these claims were never proven back then, why are they suddenly being treated now like they were hidden pieces of a bigger puzzle? And beyond that, who benefits when old noise gets turned into present-day pressure? That's the part people ignore because it's less entertaining than the rumor itself. Meghan's name kept circulating as posts framed her as connected to Dubai's elite social world, and the speculation became the event. Not a confirmed sighting. Not a documented meeting. Not a verified report. Just the growing suggestion that her past, her image, and Dubai's inner circles had collided in some way, and that the consequences were social, not legal.
They're saying they're not even sure if she's going to make more jam. That thing's already dwindling on the vine. Everything she touches turns to shit. And I think every sort of creative person behind her or deep pocket behind her knows it's an extraordinary risk. She's too toxic to touch.
The story being pushed is not about official actions. It's about whispers, distancing, and the idea that certain circles protect their reputations by quietly shutting doors. And the reason it gained traction is simple. Dubai as a setting does more than add geography. It adds mythology. It's not treated online like just another city. It carries an image of extreme wealth, private luxury, and tightly controlled access to high-status spaces. So when internet storytellers attach resurfaced rumors to that setting, the narrative instantly feels bigger than standard celebrity gossip. It stops sounding like Hollywood party chatter and starts sounding like something more serious, almost like reputations are tied to power structures that operate behind the scenes. But stop and look at what is actually being claimed. The floating narrative is not that a law was broken. It's not that an authority intervened. It's not even that a confirmed individual took a public stance. It's the suggestion that the ultra-wealthy avoid controversy the way corporations avoid risk. Quietly, strategically, without announcements. That's the theory, and it hooks people because it feels like it fits what they already assume about elite environments. The logic goes like this. If exclusivity is the brand, then distancing would be silent. If privacy is the culture, then rejection would be indirect. If reputation is the currency, then association becomes a calculation. That logic sounds clean, and it feels believable to audiences, especially when it's delivered with glossy visuals and confident narration. But logic is not evidence, and that's where perception starts running faster than facts. Once people accept the premise that something could happen quietly, it becomes easy to treat the lack of confirmation as part of the confirmation. No public denial becomes suspicious. No official reporting becomes proof of secrecy. The rumor then protects itself by claiming that the absence of proof is exactly what you should expect in a world like that. That's the trap. A story built to be unverifiable is a story that can never be fully disproven, and that's why it spreads so easily. At this point, the storyline becomes less about something that happened and more about something that sounds like it could happen. That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. Once a rumor is framed as plausible, viewers start doing the work for it. They begin filling in the blanks on their own. If there were whispers before, if powerful circles care about image, if reputations are guarded, then the conclusion starts to feel inevitable, even if the actual evidence never moved an inch. Imagination becomes the fuel, and the narrative runs on autopilot. And this matters with Meghan because her public identity sits right at the crossroads of fame, royalty, and controversy. She isn't treated like a normal celebrity where a rumor fades after a news cycle. With her, every headline becomes a referendum. People debate her past, her intentions, her credibility, and even the meaning of her silence. So when a story hints that elite international circles might view her controversy as a liability, it plugs directly into the opinions that already exist. That's why the reactions look so predictable. Critics treat the rumor like a confirmation of what they assumed all along. Supporters treat it like another recycled smear designed to punish her for stepping out of the royal mold. Either way, emotion spikes, and emotion is what drives sharing. Not facts, not documents, not verification. Here's the part that should raise eyebrows, though. There's still no official acknowledgement from any Dubai authority, no statement from representatives of prominent families, no verified controversy tied to travel records, no concrete incident that can be pinned down and checked. Yet the lack of a public denial is being interpreted by some people as silent confirmation. That's the trap in high-profile rumor cycles. Silence starts to feel suspicious even when there is nothing formal to respond to. In an environment built on privacy, not responding to gossip could be normal. It could be standard. It could be the default. But online, nuance does not trend. Drama does. And the more dramatic the setting sounds, the harder it becomes for quiet explanations to compete. So the narrative escalates until it reaches the most explosive phrase in the entire cycle, the idea that she was unwelcome, that she was pushed out, that a door was closed in a way that will never be spoken aloud. And once a rumor reaches that stage, it stops being a question and becomes a label, because people start repeating it as if repeating it makes it real. Here's where the narrative changes from gossip into something designed to apply pressure. The posts stop hinting and start declaring. Instead of floating vague speculation, they introduce outcome language, the kind that sounds like a closed decision was made somewhere behind velvet ropes. And once people start using outcome language, the audience reacts as if a real event just happened, even if no event can be located. That's why this phase hits harder. The story doesn't just say there were rumors. It implies consequences. It implies status loss. It implies a silent verdict. And the internet loves that framing because it feels immediate. It feels like something shifted overnight. Meghan's name becomes attached to a sharper claim moving through feeds, the idea that she was no longer welcome in certain elite Dubai spaces, or that she was quietly removed from the circle. Notice what that does psychologically. It turns a messy conversation into a clean headline. People can repeat it in one sentence. They can pass it along without explaining anything. And the more it gets repeated, the more it starts to sound like it came from somewhere official, even when there is no authority, no named decision maker, no documented incident, and no verifiable chain connecting it to reality. This is how rumor language upgrades itself. It starts with implication, then it becomes association, then it turns into consequence. The words do the heavy lifting. A phrase like quietly cut off carries a built-in mental picture. Private invitations stop. Calls go unanswered. People act like you're not in the room even when you're in the room. It's dramatic, it's cinematic, and it spreads because it feels like insider knowledge, even when it's just a story structure. And that is the part that should make you pause. Where did this outcome claim originate? Not who repeated it, who originated it. Was it tied to a first-hand account? A direct quote? A credible report? Any traceable source at all? Or did it grow the way these things usually grow? One anonymous post becomes 10 becomes 100, and by the time it hits mainstream timelines, it's being discussed like a known fact. That's the mechanics of digital rumor cycles. The more a claim is repeated, the less it gets treated like a claim. It starts getting treated like a background truth everyone already knows. Uncertainty fades. People stop saying allegedly. The tone becomes confident. And once the tone becomes confident, the audience forgets they never saw proof in the first place. Once people react emotionally to the quietly shut out version of the story, nuance can't move fast enough to catch them. The first impression becomes the permanent one.
And this year, she is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally.
And everything after that feels like spin. That's what makes this particular rumor cycle so volatile. Dubai's global image is built around discretion, privacy, and controlled access, so online storytellers use that reputation like a shield. If nothing is public, they claim it must have been handled privately. If no one comments, they call it a cover-up. Silence gets rebranded as evidence, and privacy gets reframed as suspicion. But there's still a hole in the middle of the narrative that no amount of confident captions can fill. Nobody can point to a confirmed moment where Meghan was publicly refused entry, formally excluded, or distanced by a named figure on record. No documented incident. No verified event listing. No credible reporting that traces back to a real-world occurrence. Without that, what's being sold is interpretation, not documentation. And interpretation can still create consequences, because reputation doesn't operate like a courtroom. It doesn't wait for proof. Social media doesn't require a filing, a transcript, or a verified timeline before it decides what to believe. Once the idea of rejection by powerful elites gets planted in mainstream conversation, it changes how people see someone, even if the claim never touches factual ground. That's the pressure point. The story becomes a lens, and every detail afterward gets filtered through it. It also sets up a no-win response trap. If Meghan says nothing, some people will treat silence like confirmation. If she denies it, others will claim the denial proves it landed. In the attention economy, responding can inflate the rumor, but staying quiet can look like surrender. That tension is exactly what keeps the cycle spinning. Which leads to the next uncomfortable question. If there's no new evidence, why is it accelerating right now? Timing in media storms is rarely random. These waves often build when attention is already circling for another reason. A new venture, a public moment, a brand move, an interview cycle. When visibility rises, older controversies tend to resurface alongside it, almost like counter-programming. The story doesn't need to be true to be useful. It just needs to land at the right moment, when the audience is already watching. Zoom out and look at the moment this rumor dropped. The audience isn't neutral. People already have a fixed opinion about Meghan before they even read the first line. One group wants her to thrive and sees every controversy as a recycled attack. Another group expects the worst and treats every rumor like a missing piece that completes their preferred story. That split is the perfect launchpad because the rumor doesn't need consensus to spread. It only needs intensity, and she generates intensity on both sides. Intensity turns into content. That's how the cycle feeds itself. A single claim becomes a flood of reactions, quote posts, stitched videos, long threads, hot takes, and breakdowns that feel authoritative even when they're built on assumptions. And the platforms help it along because the algorithm doesn't prioritize what's verified. It prioritizes what keeps people engaged. Perceived scandal plus money plus power is one of the strongest attention magnets online. Add a setting associated with exclusivity and secrecy, and the intrigue becomes almost automatic. What keeps it alive isn't proof, it's repetition. Even creators who add disclaimers like allegedly or unconfirmed still spend 10 minutes reacting to it, and that's enough to push it into recommendation feeds. Once a topic starts showing up everywhere, it begins to feel larger than life. People assume if everyone's talking, something must be there. That's how a rumor gains weight without gaining evidence. And this is where it stops being harmless chatter. When a narrative suggests that powerful circles are distancing themselves from someone, the damage isn't just social, it's reputational. Reputation is how public figures protect opportunities. Partnerships, media access, and business relationships rely on image stability. In professional spaces, uncertainty can be treated like risk, even when nothing has been proven. That means a story doesn't have to be confirmed to create impact.
Hollywood misadventure has been more of a nightmare than anything else. And they've gone from poor decision to bad decision to worse decision every single time.
It only has to hang in the air long enough to make people hesitate. The longer it hangs, the tighter the trap becomes. If Meghan addresses it, she may introduce the rumor to audiences who never saw it, which expands the reach. If she ignores it, critics interpret the silence however they want. That's the modern bind, where the subject doesn't control the tempo. The internet does. And there's another layer that often goes unnoticed: distraction value. When attention gets pulled into sensational personal claims, it crowds out everything else happening at the same time: professional work, strategic moves, charitable initiatives, brand activity. Whether intentional or coincidental, controversy tends to steal oxygen, and quieter narratives struggle to compete. So ask the uncomfortable question: is this growing because new facts surfaced, or because the conditions were perfect for old noise to feel brand new? If timing is part of the engine, then this isn't only about history. It's about visibility, influence, and who gets to control the story in the present. And until that control shifts, the pressure stays on. This is the point where these cycles usually peak, not when a fact drops, but when the pressure forces the next turn. Silence, denial, or something verifiable has to show up, or the rumor keeps spinning on momentum alone. And that's what's happening here. The noise around Meghan and Dubai didn't surge because a confirmed incident occurred. It surged because timing, recycled chatter, and high-status imagery all collided at the same moment. The event everyone is reacting to isn't documented fallout. It's a reputational storm built from suggestion, repetition, and the power of an elite setting. It started with posts written like a warning, implying doors closed somewhere quietly. But strip away the dramatic language, and what are we left with? No official statement, no credible reporting that anchors the claims to a specific moment. No named source willing to stand behind the most serious version of the narrative. What exists is a storyline that got louder because people reacted to it, and reaction is the accelerant that keeps it burning. Once audiences emotionally invest, the story becomes self-sustaining. The debates create the fuel: reaction videos, comment wars, reposts, quote posts. All of it gives the rumor fresh oxygen. At that stage, it stops being about proving anything. It becomes about arguing what people already believe happened. That's the shift that makes perception more powerful than documentation. So let's separate what's solid from what's floating. We can say with confidence that old online rumors about Meghan's pre-royal years have circulated for a long time. We can also say Dubai's global image, wealth, privacy, exclusivity, intensifies any gossip that involves elite circles. And we can say social media routinely turns speculation into something that feels like accepted history if it gets repeated enough times in the right environment. What we still do not have is the most important thing: a verifiable real-world consequence. No confirmed moment of exclusion. No public distancing by a named individual. No timeline tying the viral claims to a specific event anyone can check. The biggest claims remain implied, not demonstrated. But it still matters, because in today's media environment, pressure doesn't wait for proof. Reputation is shaped by what people think is true, not only by what can be proven. Public figures operate in a space where perception influences opportunities, partnerships, and public trust. Even a cloud made of rumor can cast a shadow if it hangs around long enough. And that creates the modern trap. If there's no response, speculation expands into the silence. If there is a response, it can refresh the cycle and introduce the story to people who hadn't seen it yet. Either way, the narrative applies pressure through momentum, not confirmed facts, and momentum is hard to stop once it starts rolling. So the real story here may be less about what happened in any exclusive setting and more about how fast modern rumor ecosystems can manufacture a global headline out of fragments and feeling. Timing, emotion, and imagery can make recycled whispers trend like breaking news, even without hard evidence. Until something concrete interrupts the cycle, a clear denial, credible reporting, or the internet shifting to its next fixation, the pressure won't vanish. It will just sit there, waiting for the next spark. This is the part people miss when they get caught arguing the rumor itself. The real power isn't in whether a single post was true or false. The power is in how fast a story can become real in the public mind without ever becoming real on paper. That's what this Dubai cycle exposed. Not a confirmed incident, not a documented fallout. A lesson in how influence works now, how perception can be built, deployed, and weaponized in broad daylight while everyone thinks they're just watching gossip. Because once a narrative reaches this stage, it stops needing evidence. It only needs momentum. It only needs the right ingredients: a polarizing figure, an elite setting, old whispers that can be recycled, and an audience already trained to pick a side instantly. Add the algorithm, add reaction culture, add the hunger for scandal with luxury branding, and you get a storm that feels unstoppable even though nobody can point to the moment it actually began. And that's why the so-called silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. If nothing is said, people decide what it means. If something is said, people decide what it proves. Either way, the subject is boxed in while the internet writes the ending in real time. That's the trap, and it's bigger than Meghan. It's the blueprint the attention economy uses on anyone it can't fully control. You don't have to defeat a person directly anymore. You just have to flood the space around them with enough suggestion that the public starts doing the damage for you. So here's the final truth of this saga. Whether Dubai had anything to do with Meghan at all is almost secondary to what the machine accomplished. It turned recycled fragments into a global talking point. It turned implication into consequence.
Already gotten the benefit of her bargain with Harry because she got the title. That's what she wanted. She wanted to be world famous. She wanted the title. You remember when Harry was single, he was the elephant. He was the one, the most eligible bachelor on earth. You could be a royal, you could become world famous overnight. You could live in a castle, you could have access to the crown jewels, you would be a princess. My God, yes, he could have
turned a lack of receipts into a storyline that felt like insider knowledge. And it proved again that in this era, the loudest narrative doesn't have to be the most accurate one. It just has to be the most repeatable. And that's where we leave it. Not with a verdict, but with clarity. If something concrete ever surfaces, a credible report, a verified timeline, a named source willing to stand on record, then the conversation changes. Until then, what you're watching is momentum dressed up as certainty. And that's the difference between information and influence. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we cut through the noise and track how these stories really get built, make sure you're locked in with BarzBuzz. Do you think this was a real fallout story or a perfectly timed rumor storm that fed on the setting and the moment? If this saga had you shook, wait till you see what's next. You already know what it is. BarzBuzz got the real, raw, and unfiltered breakdowns. So don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to catch up.